Super Mario 64 is an iconic title that revolutionized 3D gaming forever. But despite the decades of retrospectives and thousands of glowing reviews by critics, there's one aspect of the game they've all missed. What would it be like if you actually had to live in these levels? And you know I don't mean as Mario. I mean how long you could last, like as a human in a survival situation. Sure, Whomp's fortress looks nice and cozy, but what are you gonna do when you get thrown into the ocean, buddy? You got a plan? Because I do. And sure, it might sound easy to live in this castle built for royalty. And sure, Peach says there's cake in the castle, but have you ever actually seen it? This place doesn't even have a kitchen. You've been lured in by a pretty face and a sweet lie. Now, with nowhere to go, where are you supposed to get any food? The world of Super Mario 64 isn't nearly as easygoing as it first appears, but fear not, because I've sent in my survival expert / video editor into every single level in Super Mario 64 to assess just how survivable each and every course is, and then rank them based on just how long you can survive in each one. But first, let's lay down some of the ground rules here. 1. We may never leave the level we are assessing at any point, meaning once you're in that aquarium, you're stuck there. Better figure something out fast, you stupid wet idiot. And 2, we're going to be assuming that we're spawning into each level in the exact same location Mario does, with the exact same resources he has, meaning just a long sleeve t-shirt and a hat. But with that settled, let's jump into our first course, Bomb-omb Battlefield. Bomb-omb Battlefield is the first level of Super Mario 64, and one of the worst places we could be trying to live, honestly, because it is a goddamn battlefield in a war between the red and black bomb-ombs. What are these two having their little race war over? I don't think anyone really knows, honestly. Canonically, most of the levels in Super Mario 64 are just fictional worlds Bowser made inside the paintings, which means everything can just float in the void, things don't need to make any sense, and these guys don't need a reason to fight. Whatever Bowser wanted in these paintings, he could make happen.
We've just finished creating the final painted world, my lord. A verdant green mountain overlooking some lovely green fields. What would you like to do with it? Perhaps we could make some farms with which to feed your troops, or maybe a new castle upon the hill from which you can rule your new empire. We could even...
Race war.
Sire, what did you just say? I don't think I heard you right.
I want there to be a race war here.
A race war? In the fertile fields we made?
Yeah. Race war.
My lord,
What the fuck? But since these levels are just artificially created worlds, we do have to consider that the way things work here isn't always going to be the same as what we would expect in the real world, meaning that if we see some wacky physics-defying shit happening, like floating islands or infinitely respawning plants, we're just gonna roll with it, and we're not going to be asking too many questions. What we are going to be doing, though, is keeping our survival analysis based on the durability and capability of a normal human being rather than Mario himself, meaning that jumping 20 feet in the air to reach something is not going to be an option. And even though Mario was fine doing it, a normal human cannot survive being shot out of a freaking cannon and falling back down to Earth. So we're not even going to be considering the floating island in our survival scenario, because even if the world is fake, humans are real, and real life is not a cartoon. It's ridiculous to consider such unrealistic and impossible scenarios. Now then, can we eat a Goomba? If we're going to survive here, we need food and water. And while in most Mario games, you never actually get a chance to find out if these little guys are edible or not, in this game, we actually get an answer. And these enemies can be eaten in-game. I mean, not this game you're looking at right now. No. But in this one, Super Mario 64 DS, where Yoshi can not only eat the enemies, but make an egg from them as well, implying that he has the ability to digest and metabolize these little guys, gaining actual nutrition that his body can use. But just how many calories can we expect from eating one of these little bellends? First, we'll have to figure out how big they actually are, which means I'm gonna have to do some boring nerd shit. It'll be worth it though, because you're about to find out the same way I did that the Mario universe is a goddamn freak show. Using the power of a screenshot I imported to Photoshop, I determined Goombas to be about 89% of Mario's height, which is real convenient, because we already know from official Nintendo sources that Mario's height is 5'1", making this guy 11'6", and a Goomba 138 centimeters tall. To find the volume of a Goomba, I used this formula. It's 4 half domes stuck together in the shape of a mushroom with feet. Seemed fitting. Plugging our Goomba's height into the formula, we find that they have roughly a volume of about 800,000 cubic centimeters. And now that we know how much Goomba we have here, all we need to determine is what kind of food a Goomba is. Goombas are based on shiitake mushrooms, so we'll say that the number of calories you get out of one is the same as 800,000 cubic centimeters of a shiitake mushroom. I mean, like, they probably aren't mushrooms, given that they're like, actual animals that walk around and stuff, but it's much more whimsical to assume that they're actually just mushrooms with silly little faces on them. And we can all use a little more whimsy in our lives nowadays, According to the Food and Drug Administration, one serving of shiitake mushroom is about 236.59 cubic centimeters, 60 calories, and 240 grams, meaning that a 138 centimeter tall Goomba contains 201,530 kilocalories and weighs about 1,777 pounds, which I thought was a lot up until the point I remembered that these things are almost as wide as they are tall. Your average Goomba takes up almost as much horizontal space as an elevator, and if you think about just how many Mario height short kings you could cram into one of these things, suddenly that weight estimate makes a lot more sense. Honestly, the only reason you never think of Goombas being so big is because our only basis of comparison is Mario, who is himself a goddamn thick-ass, disproportionate freak of nature who probably weighs as much as a fucking minivan. But I digress. Now, there's 11 Goombas for us to eat in Bomb-omb Battlefield, which works out to there being almost exactly enough calories to last us 3 years. But none of that will matter if we don't have anything to drink, which, at first glance, there doesn't appear to be. No dirty pools of stagnant water for us to quench ourselves in like some of the other maps, but a little known fact about water is that sometimes it just kinda falls out of the sky. For some stupid reason, the black bomb-ombs are shooting water balloons at us. I mean, it's not like there's really a shortage of explosives here, and like we already know you're okay just killing yourselves to take out a quarter of my health. Just jump in the cannon and shoot yourself at me like a normal fucking bomb, you pussy. Whatever, maybe they're like more afraid of heights than they are death or something. It's not important. Or maybe it is, because ironically, their attempt to kill us is what's going to allow us to survive. Now, they're going to shoot these water balloons at you in most places, but there's a few safe spots here and there that we can hide in. And it's in these safe spots that we can dig a hole into the ground and dig out towards the danger zone, where they'll start shooting at us again. The balloon will then go into our new hole first, and the water will accumulate in the pit we have prepared for it. And just like that, we'll be able to sustain ourselves with our brand new water supply. Alternatively, we could always just take out the guy manning the cannon and kind of stick our head in there and take a little sip directly. But I don't really know where these water balloons are coming from. And if there isn't like a water line in the cannon itself and we end up killing the guy who's getting the water, we risk cutting off our water supply entirely. So I'm sticking to the pit idea, which we're going to be needing if we want to survive here long enough for us to eat our 3 years of Goomba meat. Except I lied. These Goombas aren't going to be lasting 3 years because apparently food goes bad if you don't freeze or preserve it, and I don't see any refrigerators out here in the trenches. Being generous, once we kill a Goomba, assuming they don't just kind of disappear, leaving nothing but a gold coin in their place, we have about a week tops until our food spoils, and even less time than that if these things are made out of actual animal meat and not mushrooms. However, I have a little trick to extend our food supply that I learned through many years of being a weak-willed fat fuck. By gorging ourselves on Goomba until we can physically no longer eat, we can intake about 3 to 4 times as many calories as we need in a day every day until the Goomba begins to rot. These extra calories will be stored as body fat for later use, allowing us to go a couple of extra weeks before we need to find our next victim to begin the cycle anew with. But there's still only so many calories we can metabolize in a day, so no matter how much we gorge ourselves on that delicious, nutritious, toadstool-shaped goodness, most of the Goomba is still going to rot before we get a chance to eat it. As a result, once we factor in food spoilage, these Goombas go from lasting us about 100 days each to only giving us about 3 to 4 weeks of calories maximum. Meaning, with 11 Goombas, we're only lasting 230 to 308 days before we start to starve to death. It'll take a bit of extra time beyond that to truly die of starvation. But in the best case scenario, we could probably make it about 11 to 12 months before dying, assuming that Goombas are even a good food source, that is. If they're lacking nutrients, we may have a vitamin deficiency and then develop scurvy or something and die even sooner. Or maybe they just happen to be the perfect superfood, giving us all the nutrients a human could ever desire, and we spend the last year of our life healthier than we've ever been before. There's no way of knowing, so I'm just going to assume that all the fictional food we're eating in this video meets our nutritional needs. But before we dive into the next level, let's consider the level selection area itself. Not only is Peach's Castle probably the most iconic hub world of any game ever made, but given that it's actually home for royalty itself, we can expect it to be a pretty livable place as well. There is no running water, and despite the promise that she was making us a cake, there is no cake, there is no food, nor even a kitchen to be found. In fact, there's not even furniture in this place. There's just paintings, empty rooms with 40-foot tall wall art everywhere. Now, maybe Bowser's first order of business after taking over the castle was just to steal all the couches and chairs, but like, he lives here now. I don't know why he would do that. I just don't think Peach has any furniture in her house for some reason. I think she's a little house poor, if you know what I mean. But the financial state of the crown is not of our concern. What does this mean for our survival chances? Frankly, it means that despite having housing, it's going to feel like we're homeless. Like, she doesn't even own a bed. We're going to be sleeping on the carpet while these fucking ghost toads just stare at us. But despite Peach's broke ass not having much we can survive off in her castle, there's still plenty for us to survive off of outside of it. Because not only is the moat being fed by a freshwater waterfall, but it also has fish in it as well, giving us all the water we'll ever need to survive, as well as a few extra little snacks. But this little school of fish isn't going to keep us fed forever. There's like 10 of them. We're going to need something a little extra. Birds. I hate those flamboyant little show-offs, but they are tasty. And there's plenty to be found in the castle courtyard. We could easily use the trees outside to fashion ourselves some sort of a basic hunting spear, or maybe even some traps to secure some food. Plus, you know, birds kind of fly, which means unlike the fish, if we eat all the birds in the area, it's pretty reasonable to expect that more will eventually show up. But eating robins and blue jays every day for the rest of our life sounds pretty boring. I like to keep my meals varied. Also, I don't think an adult human can survive off a few songbirds every day, so we're going to need to find an alternative source of food. So, how do we go from turning these 10 or so fish into a lifetime supply? Well, we could always just feed, nurture, and care for them for a couple of years, until the moat has a high enough population where we could eat a few every day without worrying about killing them all. But I'm going to be honest, I'm lazy and don't really want to put that much work in. Also, we don't have 2 years, so we're going to be taking an alternative approach and just add more fish in. This is Peach's aquarium. There's even a level in it, which we would drown in. I mean, unless you got gills. I'm a fish, and even I don't have gills. I mean, I guess I don't have lungs either. How do I talk? I just kind of vibrate my whole body at the right frequency to communicate with you. You know, like how a headphone works. There you go. There's your fish lore for the video. Anyway, we die instantly in here. Not a good course. But while the aquarium level would kill us, the aquarium itself is going to help us thrive. Just in a different level. Since all the toads are trapped in the walls or whatever this fading in the ether is supposed to represent, these fish are fucked since no one is here to feed them anymore. Naturally, it's going to be up to us to get them out of there. Now, I don't know where the entrance the toads use to access the aquarium is, but I have a plan, and it's a simple one. I'm gonna smash this bitch open with a rock and move as many fish as I can to the moat before they die. And remember, fish don't have any hang-ups over cannibalism or anything. In my household, if you come home and Grandpa's dead, the only box we're putting him in is in the oven. Not to cremate him, just to cook and eat him. You know, just want to make that clear. What I'm trying to say is if any fish die in the transfer, that's fine, because we can use them to feed the ones that live, helping them to grow and prosper, reproduce faster. Or we could just eat them ourselves. I don't know. Maybe we should only be feeding the fish food that we can't eat before it rots. Either way, this should dramatically increase our food supply in a short time. Or we'll, you know, just throw too many fish carcasses in the moat and poison the water and kill all the other fish that were already in there. We'll see how it goes. It could go either way. I'd give it a 50-50 shot. So I'll just go ahead and put the castle down as temporarily survivable, with it having the outside chance of being perpetually survivable. I definitely think we could make it work, but there's a lot of variables at play, and I'm just bad at math, man, alright? Do you know how hard it is to keep a fish farm alive? I mean, I can barely feed myself. I don't know how you expect me to take care of 600 of these guys as well. I'm a free spirit. I can't be chained down by the responsibility of raising other fish and then eating them. I need to go somewhere fun, somewhere whimsical, like our next level, the castle's secret slide. It is a slide. There is no food. There is no water. There isn't even a way back up once you ride it down. So we're just gonna kind of enjoy one trip down through the dark inky void, and then we're trapped in this box. It's not great. We're just gonna slowly dehydrate to death before entering the void ourselves. Not the best way to go out, honestly, but I guess it could be worse. At least we're not freezing to death. Cool Mountain is probably one of the most iconic snow levels in gaming, because despite Mario 64 being an early 3D platformer, it still really manages to nail the snowy atmosphere, both aesthetically and in terms of gameplay. We have the slowly falling snow, the penguins, the slide made from ice that we get a couple of fun stars out of, the fact that when you fall from a large height, you don't take damage like you would in other courses, but instead you just land safely in the fresh fallen snow. A lot of good details right into the game when they were making this level. They even made it so that if Mario stands still for a while, he starts shivering because he's cold as hell. He's dying. He's slowly succumbing to hypothermia, and so will we. From the moment we step foot in here, there is a ticking timer until we freeze to death. Now, how long it takes to actually develop hypothermia varies dramatically depending on the temperature, wind speed, humidity, and your clothing. So it's not really possible to say how long we have until we freeze to death exactly. But for reference, if you don't have a coat and get stranded outside overnight, people have been known to die of hypothermia at temperatures as high as 50 degrees Fahrenheit or 10 degrees Celsius. And obviously, the snowy mountaintop is going to be a little bit colder than that. Assuming we have nothing more than a long sleeve shirt and some overalls like Mario, we're going to be developing hypothermia within an hour. And from what little scientific research I could find about freezing to death, that time frame might even be a little bit generous. We cannot survive outside. We need shelter or a source of heat. Perhaps a nice cozy mountainside cabin, somewhere where we can just watch from the window and enjoy the snowfall from a safe distance as we enjoy some hot cocoa while bundled up under a blanket. Yeah, so the cabin here has a big ass ice slide in it, and I don't think I'm going to be warming up this big ass cabin with just my body heat, so our prospects are looking rather grim. Now, building an igloo has been a reliable way for humans to shelter themselves from the cold for thousands of years, and obviously, we have plenty of snow and ice around here we can use, but there's a problem gathering snow for an igloo. Packing it together and hollowing out a space for us to sleep in can take hours. We do not have hours. We have like hour tops, at which point hypothermia will begin to set in. Our bodies will no longer have the physical strength required to move snow around, and our eyes will grow heavy as we slowly succumb to the bitter cold. Igloos are a luxury for those that have already prepared themselves for prolonged cold exposure. Dressed like this guy, that simply isn't going to be an option for us. I say that we're likely going to die of hypothermia rather quickly here. I'd be surprised if we could even make it through the first night. That is, of course, unless you're playing the DS version, in which case they just added a fire right next to spawn here that never burns out. And you're not going to believe this, but free, infinite energy is really useful in a survival situation. We can keep warm, we can melt snow to drink it without sacrificing those precious calories we need to warm it up inside of our body, and we can even cook food. Speaking of which, just how much is there on this big iceberg in the sky? Now, there's a lot of enemies here, but most of them are either made of snow or these little propeller guys called spindrifts, which I'm pretty sure are mechanical, so there's no enemies to eat. Fortunately for us, however, enemies aren't our only option. The only real question here is penguin meat. Can we eat it? Yes, people can definitely eat penguins. Historically, they were eaten by sailors visiting Antarctica, but believe it or not, apparently it's not a common food anymore, and it was really hard to find penguin meat nutritional facts on the internet. I did eventually find a penguin meat enthusiast website where the banner at the top was just this, so yeah, that looks like a good source of information. They seem like they know their stuff. Emperor penguins apparently have around 6 pounds of meat on them that give up 34,240 calories, which sounds like a lot for what amounts to like 18 chicken breasts, but penguin is apparently not a particularly lean meat. It's mostly blubber, oil, and from what I read, extraordinarily calorie dense, which is great for us because we do not have a lot of penguin to go around here. We have 4. 2 adults, 2 children. But how much meat is there on our Mario-sized penguins? Now, the penguins in Mario 64 are actually like already pretty close to the same body shape as a real-life penguin. Just kind of big fluffy birds that forgot how to fly. You stupid idiots. Even I can fly and I'm a fish. And the baby penguins here are within the normal height range for an emperor penguin already. So we can just say they give roughly the same amount of food as a normal penguin, which means they have enough calories to last us about 17 days each. Now normally, meat would rot long before we made it that long, but you know, there's ice everywhere and we can just kinda We'll leave it on the ground outside. Just gotta thaw it out over the fire when it comes time to eat it. But these are still just the babies. How many calories can we get out of the big boys? The big penguins are roughly 3.8 times the height of the little ones. And since the adult penguins are the exact same shape as the baby penguins, just kind of stretched out, we can just find the cube of the height multiplier to find the volume multiplier, meaning that these big penguins have 54.9 times the volume, 54.9 times the meat, and 54.9 times the calories. 1,878,817.28 calories. I mean, it's probably not that precise, but we have roughly 939 days worth of calories per big penguin, bringing us to a total of 1,912 days of food, or a bit over 5 years. Assuming penguin fat has enough vitamins to keep you alive for that long, which I mean, most nutritional information I can find says they don't, but they also say you can't just survive on mac and cheese and pepperoni pizza, and I mean, that's all I ate in college for 4 years, so like, what the fuck do nutritional experts know? I'm just gonna say we're gonna start starving to death 5 years after we get here in the DS version. And this won't be the only time we see a difference between Super Mario 64 and Super Mario 64 DS in terms of survivability. Because Super Mario 64 DS actually added a lot of things to levels, like extra stars to collect, and new power-ups, like the Inflation Mario. So that's a big something extra for some of you watching right now, I'm sure. But Mario 64 DS didn't just add things to existing levels, but added a few brand new levels as well. In fact, in order to even play as Mr. Bing Bing Wahoo himself, you actually need to complete one of them. The Goomboss battle. Touch me. No, I don't think I will. As the name implies, Goomboss Battle is home to a brand new boss. The Goomboss. Now, it may sound like it would be hard to survive in a level with this 30-foot tall villain, but it's implied in game, and he actually only has an issue with Mario. He doesn't really seem to mind Yoshi too much at all, and just tells him to leave. Because he's not a homicidal maniac, just a regal gentleman, a proud king who just wants to do his little victory march after imprisoning his arch-rival, and give live birth in front of us, which I mean, you just gotta respect that. That's just the miracle of life. It's fucking beautiful, man. I mean, like, wow. Anyway, we're gonna die here. I mean, if we like strategically kidnap kids, we could probably get ourselves an infinite food supply, but like, there's no water anywhere in this level. We're dying of dehydration long before we even need to think about eating here. You ever just wake up and stare at the ceiling, wondering where it all went wrong? Have you ever then gotten sucked into that ceiling and had to collect 8 red coins floating in the sky? Welcome to the red switch in the sky. It is a red switch on a tower in the sky. There is no food, there is no water, and worst of all, they start you off with this wing cap thing flying over the abyss. Can a normal human even use this? In the DS game, it only works on Mario. So like, I think we just fall to our death if we spawned in here. This place sucks. And on top of that, it's the only level that pulls you in just by looking at the goddamn thing. Like a goddamn cognito hazard. Like, what if you had a guest over that doesn't know about it? Oh wow, look at the landscape paint job in here. We got the hills on the walls, we got the clouds in the skies, they even painted the sun. Where am I? What's going on? Who the fuck made this shit? But if you can avoid the Sistine Chapel that kills you and make it through this door, you can get trapped in a slightly more survivable form of hell instead. Whomp's Fortress. Wow, we got a battlefield and a fortress. Bowser's not messing around here, is he? Whomp's Fortress is another iconic Mario 64 level that you do not want to be in, because it is covered in thwomps and whomps who just want to crush you to death. Honestly, despite their massive weight and impressive 6-foot vertical, I think we could probably kill one ourselves if we really wanted to. Like, you can just kind of walk under it when it jumps, and I mean, all Mario has to do to kill one is ground pound it in the back. And while you don't normally think of a normal human as being able to do a ground pound, I mean, I guess you could, but it'd be kind of stupid because a 5'2" Italian man really isn't generating that much force just dropping a few feet ass first into the concrete. I mean, if you just kind of jump up in the air and stomp both your feet down, you can probably achieve a similar effect here. Although, as previously established, Mario's a bit of a thick freak, so maybe he's just so heavy that falling a couple of feet is just lethal to anything underneath him. Not that it matters much. These guys are slow and really don't come down to this grassy area where we spawn, so we can just opt to avoid them entirely if needed. But I will say, thwomps. Why did they retcon the blue ones out of existence in the remake? I mean, look at these guys. Gray, boring, brick-like rectangle. But then look at these guys. blue, vibrant, fun cube shape. Got a lot more personality in my opinion, but I'm not here to judge the enemies based on their appearance. I'm here to find food and water. Now there is some water in this pool here, but how long will it last us? To see how much water we have, we're going to need to find the dimensions of this stupid pool. Fortunately for us, however, we have these squares that tile the pool that make it nice and simple. These squares are almost exactly 2 Marios or 310 centimeters across, giving them an area of 96,100 square centimeters each. You can then take an overview shot of the map to find out how many of these squares there are just by kind of counting them in Photoshop. I mean, I could just measure the pool and do the math, but like, I mean, there's a lot of edges along this slope bit here, and I'm really lazy, man. If it's just easier to count at this point, I don't know what to tell you. Anyway, there's about 84 squares here, or just over 8 million square centimeters of space in this pool. Now all we need to find is the water's height, which, so long as we have Mario as our universal measuring stick, is very straightforward, as this water is almost exactly 40% Mario's height, or 62 centimeters in depth. Multiply that by our surface area, and we have over 500 million cubic centimeters of water, which, if we drink a gallon a day, is enough to last about 362 years. Now, obviously, this can change depending on how the rules of the painted world works. Does water evaporate? If it does, what's the humidity and temperature in here? If it's already too humid, the water will never evaporate. And if the air is super hot and dry, the water will probably be gone in a few days. But since the physics on this floating fortress in the sky are already somewhat questionable, we'll just say that the water acts the way it does in game and just kind of sits there forever. But what about food? Most of the enemies in this level are rocks, and while my favorite food is a rock, I don't think we're going to be getting too much nutrition out of blocks of concrete. And humans can't gain nutrition from eating grass, so this stuff on the ground isn't going to do us too much good either. What we do have are piranha plants, which are based on Venus flytraps, typically poisonous to humans. Not that science matters here, but even if it did, these bad boys aren't all plant matter, because they got those big, fat, juicy tongues. Just think about what those tongues can do for us here. Now, getting close to one of these things without getting bitten sounds difficult, but if we just kind of take a branch off this tree here and get like a pointed stick, I mean, it's a flower. Just poke it in the head and we should be good here. Meat is full of protein, which is vital for survival. And since it's from a plant, it counts as a vegetable too. Very healthy. But just how much of it do we actually have? There's only 3 piranha plants on this level, so after killing them and taking all of their tongues, we'll roughly be able to last forever, because they grow back like immediately. These piranha plants are one of the only enemies in Mario 64 that will actually respawn without you having to leave the level, meaning that between these bitey little bitches and this comedically shallow swimming pool, we'll be able to survive in Whomp's fortress until the day we die. I mean, I guess we can survive in all the levels until the day we die, but you know what I mean. We win the challenge here by dying of Alzheimer's or a stroke or cancer or something instead. Jolly Roger Bay, home of the iconic eel from that one Mario Kart 8 course, and I mean, that's it really. I was never a big fan of the water levels in this game. They're all just kind of big pits full of water that have random shit thrown in there. But I'm not here to judge your level design. I mean, I am, but only the survivability of it. Food! We have a few Goombas in this underwater cave, along with 4 giant clams, and of course, the giant eel. But before we can worry about just how we're supposed to kill a 200-foot long sea monster, we need to find a source of water, which... Done. Or are we? Because based on the title of this level calling it, the ocean, this is probably going to be salt water, which is a problem because drinking salt water actually dehydrates you. Now, there are ways to get salt out of water, but they pretty much all require the use of either bright sunshine or fire, and this place is cloudy as shit. All the wood looks like it's been soaking down here since the 1790s, and even if I managed to pull a few planks free from the ship or this weird algae-covered boardwalk thing, we still have to dry the wood before we can start a fire with it. In ideal conditions, it takes like a week minimum to get soaked wood dry enough to start a fire with. I mean, if we could figure out a way to get a fire going here to purify the water, we could probably live here indefinitely given just how much food there is swimming around in the ocean. So let me know if I missed something here. But frankly, I don't see a way we're lasting more than 3 days here before we die of dehydration. But if you think this water level's rough, let's go ahead and take a shot at another. In the DS remake of this game, there's a brand new level. If you go past the character selection room, not only do you find the minigame room, but this course as well. The Sunshine Isles, which consist of a bunch of sandbars, some palm trees that barely exist above sea level, and That's really it. This is the whole thing. Now, obviously, we have some Goombas, this big vulture, and a Lakitu we can eat, but there doesn't really seem to be any fish swimming around in the ocean here. So our food supply is going to be a bit limited. And the water here is presumably salty if Bowser decides to stick with the ocean theme when building this one. In theory, we could cut these trees down and use them as firewood. Maybe use the palm leaves to catch the steam and just kind of let that water drip into our mouths, or like a bird's skull or something. But again, it takes a while for wood to dry out enough to start a fire with it. Longer than the 3 days we have before we die of dehydration. And I mean, like, even if we could light the wood on fire here, there's only like a few trees here, so ironically, looks like so far, the water levels in this game are going to be the hardest ones to find anything to drink in. But with the first floor cleared, or maybe clearing us, I don't really know, it's time to take a look at our first Bowser stage with Bowser in the Dark World. Look, I'm not wasting your time on this one. We have 6 Goombas and no water. This place fucking sucks. 72 hours and we die of dehydration. Tops. If you feel a little spicy, you can pick up one of the 1-up shrooms and come back from the dead just to do it over and over again until the end of time. But in my book, if you had to come back from the dead to keep carrying on, you didn't survive in the first place. But leaving the abyss and walking to the backside of this castle, we can see this guy, a big white blob, just kind of floating there, unendingly staring forward at us. What kind of a freak does that all day? Anyway, this courtyard's full of ghosts, but if you kill this ghost in the back here, Mario just kind of shrinks down and is teleported into a tiny little cage. What's with Mario games and putting him in these little bottles? Why does this happen multiple times? What was my boy Shiggy going through between 1996 and 2002 where he thought he had to keep doing this? Shigeru, what were you trying to tell us? Anyway, Big Boo's Haunt sucks. This isn't going to be the level where you die the fastest, but man, it's going to be the level where you wish you did. First off, as a normal human, you don't want to go here at all. The mansion, it's full of ghosts and giant eyeballs and haunted pianos and the most vile enemy of all, literature. Look, Mario is capable of surviving superhuman falls, getting hit by 60-foot-tall metal monsters, and diving into lava. And even he's getting his ass kicked when these ghosts touch him. A normal human is going to die instantly if these things get at you. Like, there's a lot of dangerous enemies in Mario games that you don't want to deal with as a normal human, but you can run away from bomb-ombs and let them kill themselves. You can just stay away from piranha plants. And Goombas are little bitches who die in a single punch. But Boos, they can phase through walls. They can chase you as long as they want without committing suicide. And Mario's best method of dealing with them is to jump 10 feet in the air and give them an acute onset cerebral cortex readjustment using the power of his incredibly sturdy ass. I cannot do that. My ass is paper thin. And they don't even die when Mario does it. They just get sick of dealing with him and leave, taunting him on the way out. And these fuckers are just everywhere. It would be extraordinarily dangerous, bordering on suicidal, to enter that mansion. Fortunately, we have a shack in the back we can hide in, where all we have to deal with is this 10-foot tall eyeball, which, I mean, all you gotta do to kill this thing is run circles around it and make it dizzy, so it's actually pretty fragile. Not very dangerous at all, honestly. And when we kill it, we can get ourselves some quick meat for some easy calories. And from here, we can take the elevator down to the basement, which, unfortunately for the homeowners, is flooded. And fortunately for us, is flooded. We can drink the water, all right? And I'm not gonna bore you with the math here, because we already have seen a pool with the same height of this water, and there's just way more pool here. We will not die thirsty. Just probably whenever a Boo wanders out of the mansion and finds us, or, assuming that doesn't happen, when we starve to death in about a month. We have these 3 spiders outside we can eat, and their bodies are about the same height as Mario. So not even accounting for the legs, we have nearly 2 million cubic centimeters of that juicy spider meat here for us. But again, it is meat, and we do not have a fridge. So we got like 1, maybe 2 days tops to eat these bad boys. And if we're really adventurous, there is a second eyeball we can kill on the first floor of the mansion, and a third on the second floor. But problem, the second floor is not unlocked when Mario first shows up to the mansion. He needs to kill all the Boos on the first floor to unlock it, which again, I don't think we're going to be able to do, so first floor is where we're going to be stuck to. So I'm going to give us about 10 days of food here. If we really eat as much as we can every time we kill something, we can probably get enough calories for like a month. But honestly, the countdown to starvation ends about a week, maybe 2 after we get here. Give or take a few days depending on how long spider meat takes to rot. Not a great place to survive. But while we're here, the Haunted Mansion is actually home to a second level, the Big Boo Battle, where, after a fight with the large lad himself, you unlock Mario Mario's taller, richer, more handsome brother. You don't want to come here for anything other than the fight, though. This place sucks. There's not much space to live on, there is no water, and the only thing to eat is this giant eyeball. Now, eyeballs are actually mostly water, so you could hydrate yourself on the fluids inside of it. But problem, the fluids are inside of a bag of meat and will be contaminated within about a day or so as soon as that meat begins to rot. Now, if we could take the water out and like boil it somewhere, we could actually solve this problem. But again, this place sucks. There's nothing other than ghosts in this horrific laughter to keep us company, and it just never stops. Like, it keeps going the entire time you're here. I know the eyeball could let us live like an extra day before we die of dehydration, but after 48 hours of listening to over and over again, I think I'm going to be checking out early. And with those 2 levels done, that wraps up our time in the Haunted Mansion. But believe it or not, we're not done with the courtyard yet, because there's one more level they've added in the DS remake. If you walk to the back corner and break these brick blocks with your bare hands somehow, we can access the secret of the battle fort. Honestly, not a great place to make a living in a battle fort, because not only does it live up to its name, being full of rolling cannonballs and mechanical monstrosities as well as Bowser's minions, but there's no water. Honestly, none of these enemies really seem to seek us out when we're just standing around, so we might be able to live here long enough to die of dehydration, but there's a strong chance that something actually manages to kill us before then. Like, I could probably take out a Goomba on my own, but if one of these little guys that throws you 50 feet in the air catches me while I'm taking a nap, I'm probably going to be waking up 50 feet above the ground in 2 seconds before the end of my life. You ever feel like you aren't getting anywhere in life? You ever feel like you're banging your head against a brick wall? That wall ever give way and teleport you into the middle of the desert? Welcome to Shifting Sandlands, where the sands really do be shifting. Obviously, we should be avoiding that. But fun fact about quicksand, it's actually mostly water. Despite the desert aesthetic, this place is moist. And if we make our way to the back corner here, we can see why. A desert oasis, complete with trees and that good wet. Now, seeing how much quicksand there is here, there's likely a ton of groundwater, and this pond would probably refill as we drink from it. But again, Bowser made this world and the rules it abides by. Does he know, or even dare I say, care about the importance of ground watershed and its impact on the ecosystem at large? I fear he may not. So this may be all the water we have. Now let's figure out how long we can live off this thing. I had to do a bunch of stupid measurements for this one, a lot of triangles, and I'm not going to go over all the math here because this video is already too long, but to make it simple, this oasis is roughly 116,304,064 cubic centimeters, which is about 30,724 gallons, or at a gallon a day, just over 84 years of water. More than enough, honestly. Now, you might think after we eat all the Goombas and Shy Guys on this map, we slowly die to death of starvation, but you can't eat all the enemies if they keep growing the fuck back. Meet the Pokies. If you damage their heads, they'll die instantly, of course, but they're slow and easy to land a body shot on. If you remove just one of the lower segments of their bodies, not only do they survive, but they'll heal as well. Every day, we can merely rip away at their feet, gnaw upon the severed parts of their body for our own nutrition, and by a cruel trick of evolution, as long as we keep the head alive, their incredible regenerative ability that was meant to keep them safe from permanent harm will now condemn them to an endless cycle of being eaten alive by us. And with this infinitely replenishing food source, and more than enough water to last a lifetime, we can safely say that this desert hellscape is somehow one of the most livable locations in Super Mario 64. You know, assuming we don't just kind of trip and get swallowed up by the sands, but it could be worse, like our next level. Welcome to Lethal Lava Land. Hey, did you know? Lava is really hot. A pool of lava like this can be up to 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. It's honestly a miracle Mario isn't literally boiling alive just standing here. And the fact that Mario can survive standing here at all probably lets us assume that the air temperature isn't quite hot enough to kill us instantly, but when you're standing above a boiling lake, you're likely to suffer a heat stroke in just a few hours if we don't find some way to cool down. So the question is, can we survive here? I mean, you can do anything if you just believe in yourself. No, where's that water and shelter? Oh, what's that? There is no water? And the only shelter is inside a volcano? I don't know if I can just keep believing in myself. I think we're gonna last a couple hours here tops. All right, so a sea of lava, not a great place to survive. But what about our next level? Bowser in the Fire Sea. Yeah, but as anyone who's played Super Mario 64 before knows, before we can roast to death the second time, we need to make it through one other level first. Dire Docks is yet another ocean level, meaning plenty of fish, plenty of safe spaces to sleep, but no fresh water to speak of. It's all ocean. Normally, this would mean we're dead in 72 hours as we slowly dehydrate. But there's a little something extra here that's gonna turn things around for us. That being the ominous floating sphere. You see that? That's steam, baby. Steam made of pure, unsalted water. Now all we have to do is figure out how to get it inside of our mouths. But first, can we get to the orb? As we'll be spawning at the top of this giant pool and have to swim all the way through this tunnel to make it there. Is it feasible to consider that a human could make it through this cave without drowning? Well, Mario can make it here, and he can only hold his breath for 72 seconds before drowning, which is actually a lot less than your average human could do. Like, holding his breath and speaking like a normal human being are probably the only two things Mr. Bing Bing Wahoo is worse at than you and I would be. So, I think it's fair to say, if Mario can swim somewhere in the game, so could we. So, with getting to the orb settled, all we have to do is figure out how to collect the steam, which, in theory, is actually pretty straightforward. All we have to do is fix a slanted object above the point in the water where the steam is originating from. The steam will rise up, hit the object, and some of it will recondense into water, then drip down the object we've placed above it, before falling back down into some sort of water collecting vessel. The most difficult part is finding the resources we need to make this happen. Fortunately for us, I know just where we can find both our condensation slant and the water collector, because Bowser, in his infinite wisdom, has put one giant clam on the ocean floor here. If we kill it, we can use one shell as our condenser, and the other to collect the condensed water. Now, normally it's not easy to kill a clam without breaking the shell, but this one is constantly chomping at us as we swim by. So if we just take this signpost and just kind of sharpen it on the metal propeller on Bowser's submarine, we could create a wooden spear that we could just kind of cram in that clam, hopefully killing it instantly, allowing us to collect the shells, along with some rocks off the seabed, or maybe some boards from the dock here to create the supports we need to fix the shell above the water, and in turn, allowing us to finish our water purifier. Now, we're going to be spending most of our life here just kind of sitting in front of the fire orb, slowly letting it create steam for us, and then drinking that. And when we're not doing that, we're going to be collecting fish and seaweed for us to cook and eat. So, like, not a great life, but it does make Dire Docks one of the few water levels where perpetual survivability is even conceivable. I mean, there's a chance that the fish don't repopulate like they do in real life because painting, and we just kind of slowly run through our food supplies and eventually starve to death. So yeah, that's something I considered, but there's no need to be such a Debbie Downer. I'm an optimist, so I think we'll be fine. But if you ever get sick of all the water, we do have an option to drain some of it, just not in this level. In Peach's castle. Heading down this hallway in the basement, if we ground pound these two brick pillars, the entire moat outside begins to drain for some reason. Who designed this? Just make it a lever. Is this the intended way to drain the moat, or are we just like breaking the foundation of the castle and it's leaking out? I don't feel like it's supposed to be doing this. Whatever, it's fine. The important thing is that it unlocks a new level for us to look at. The Vanish cap under the moat. This is where you normally find the blue switch to unlock the Vanish cap. Not that will be important to us here, because all we have to do is survive in this wacky underground place. There is no food or water, so it's going to be a little difficult making it past the 72-hour mark. Plus, we spawn at the top of this 500-foot tall stone slide, and I mean, like, I'm going to die anyway, so I'm riding this thing. It looks fun as hell, but knowing my luck, I'm probably just going to go too fast and fall off the edge at the bottom instead of stopping. Look, guys, I'm not a very smart person. All right, there's a powerful chance I personally am going to be dying before I even get a chance to get thirsty here. But you see that 20-foot wide pool of mercury in the ground over there? First off, what the hell are we even doing here, Peach? Are you drinking this shit like a Chinese emperor seeking immortality? This shit's poisonous as hell. Second, we're going to be jumping headfirst into it because it's time to take a look at Hazy Maze Cave. And just to give you an idea of how it's going to go, I have 3 words for you. Infinite spider pit. No matter how many we kill, these spiders will endlessly jump out of the pit right where we spawn in, meaning that this lame-ass attempt at an obstacle might actually be the greatest lifeline we get in the entire game, because it makes Hazy Maze Cave one of the few places in Mario 64 with a renewable food source. All we need to do now is find some water, which if you've ever played this game before, you know won't be a very hard task. Continuing past the infinite spider pit, down this pole, up the elevator, past the rolling rocks, down another elevator, fantastic level design, Shiggy, we find this giant lake, which easily has more water than we'll ever need in our entire lives. Problem. The trip down to the water is one way. And believe it or not, it's not actually the fire pole we took down on the door outside of the infinite spider pit. There's a back door that lets us back up to spawn. I mean, you gotta jump across this wide bottomless pit and climb these two walls, but like, I mean, I used to jump down staircases as a child, so I know this part's possible. And, you know, if he wasn't such a weak-ass bitch who couldn't do a pull-up, someone as tall as the editor could easily do a little hop and pull himself over these walls no problem. No, the real issue is this jump right here at the entrance to the platform with the rolling rocks. And while Mario can make this jump no problem, Mario can jump 15 feet in the air. A normal human cannot do this. Now, I haven't really brought this up until now because it honestly didn't make any difference before now, but I did manage to find a rough analog as to what a normal human can do in this game as far as platforming goes. Now, while Mario can famously jump absurd heights, the 15-foot flip he does is just his highest jump. The standard jump that Mario does while walking or from the standing position is actually much closer to a baseline human's jumping potential, bringing Mario only about 5 feet in the air. I mean, that's still 3 times what a normal human can do, but to be fair, Mario is a full foot shorter than my test subject, and his arms are even shorter than that. I mean, Mario can barely reach above his own goddamn head. He's got no reach. He's such a demented little freak. Jesus Christ. A tall human can easily reach a couple of feet above their head, grab a ledge, and pull themselves up. And while I think it might be a little hard to do that while jumping headfirst into a wall, it's conceivable. So I'll say a normal human's extended height and reach makes up the difference for Mario's extra jumping height. For the sake of this video, I'm going to say that if Mario can reach somewhere in one standard jump, a human can reach that same place. And no matter how hard or how many times I tried, I simply could not make the jump back from this rolling rock platform onto the platform with a door on it. As far as I can tell, once you make this jump to go get that yummy dragon water, you can never go back. It is a one-way drop you will not be returning from. And there is not any food over there. I mean, like, maybe if you can kill the goddamn Loch Ness monster down here, you can eat some of that. But I'm gonna be honest, if I get into a fight with a 30-foot tall water dinosaur, I don't think I can win that. I'm just not that guy. And it's not gonna make a difference, but to rub salt in the wound, right behind this gated door, there is another infinite spider pit that we just can't get to. Because in order to open this gate, you need to weigh down this switch using the metal cap. We are going to starve 20 feet away from infinite food because someone put the only switch to open the door underwater. This one jump turns Hazy Maze Cave from one of the most livable levels of Mario 64 to one where we are more or less certain to die of starvation once we get thirsty enough to make this jump. It is, of course, unless you're playing the DS version where they added a bridge right here for some reason, making the whole pit a non-issue. DS version goes right in the top tier. Very survivable. Very nice. But with that, we're finished with every level in the basement. On to the second floor, and jumping into the very first painting we see, we can enter Wet Dry World, where the gimmick is that you can raise or lower the water level based on just how high you jump into the painting. And I'm gonna, well, actually, here for a second, this is the lowest the water level ever gets. This is not a wet, dry world. It's more of a wet, less wet world. You're lying to me, Shiggy, but it's okay. I think we've all learned a long time ago that the truth isn't what matters, merely the perception of what truth is. Perhaps this is why in Mario 64 Bowser sought not to conquer the world with the power of the stars, but instead to create a new one within the paintings. Because here, whatever Bowser perceives to be truth can become the new truth, and he needs not reconcile the differences between his preconceived notions of the world and the actuality he would be forced to confront while controlling it. As a sort of creator myself, I can understand this desire to project your inner vision onto the world. And within these videos, you the viewer now reside within and experience my reality and live within my lies. For example, I may appear to you as a paper fish in front of Peach's castle, but in reality, we both know that's not the truth, is it? Actually, film these voiceovers in front of a green screen and then just add the video game into the background afterwards. But you had no idea until now, did you? And even if you already knew, did it ever really matter? We must learn to live in this world of lies we find ourselves in. And frankly, when the lies here are that there's a lifetime supply of water in a supposedly dry world, it's actually a lot easier to live with that because we're not dying of dehydration here. And frankly, we have such easy access to fire that even if this is all salt water, it should be easy to gather debris in this flooded city and build a desalinator. I mean, assuming that there are any debris. I don't actually see any here because this is an N64 game and they didn't have the technology to put more than 45 polygons in a level yet. But even if we just consider the level as we can see it in game, we could always just I don't know, check to see if any of these bricks are loose after the flood and take them to use this board to build a desalinator. I don't know. We might not even need one. These weird tiles here make me feel like I'm in a bathroom, so maybe this is just a big wacky bathroom and this is all fresh water. Who knows? Bowser made this world. Nothing needs to make any sense. Food! Where can we find it? We have scattered around this level 5 of these 15-foot wide spiders called skeeters. Yep, they really do be skeeting. The rest of the creatures in this level appear to be fully mechanical, and although there are plants, they're like trees and grass, which humans can't be sustained off of. So I don't know what a mouthful of skeet tastes like, but given that bug meat will begin to rot in about a day, we'll have not to eat but skeet for nearly a week before our food supply begins to deplete. And then we starve to death. But up next, we have something special. The only level in Super Mario 64 with 2 different spawn locations. Kinda, not really. In Tiny Huge Island is actually just one spawn location, but depending on which painting you jump into at the beginning, it's either tiny or not tiny. Now, throughout the island, there are several warp pipes that let you travel between the 2 different versions of the island. So normally it doesn't really make a difference which painting you jump through, but we don't have the fantastical level traversal abilities innate to all Italian Americans. So for our survival scenario, we're going to have to consider each case independently. Entering the huge island, traversal is actually trivial. The entire island can be explored easily with just a single bound of our mustachioed friend. So we can go anywhere we want. Water is plentiful, as well as fire and stone should we need to build a water purifier. The only issue at hand here is food, which, as we've previously discussed, these giant piranha plants can supply in abundance. I mean, they're like 30 feet tall and Spitfire, so it's going to be a little dangerous, but they do go down in a single punch from Mario, so yeah, we could probably kill them if we're careful and have as much food as we want, assuming they grow back, of course, which I mean, they're not really doing that right now, are they? Once you kill these bad boys, they don't appear to grow back. At least not in front of us, that is. These plants are just a little bit shy is all. If you jump through the warp pipe, head back to Big Island, and then go back to the small island again, you'll find them right back where they were before, giving us access to free, infinite food. Now, I mean, this is probably the most dangerous source of food we've tried to gather so far, and I'm made of paper. One lick of these flames and it's all over for me. But I mean, this level is technically survivable so long as you manage to not get yourself killed. I suppose that's true for every level. If you don't die, you live, but you get what I mean. But running down to the other side of this giant-ass wannabe optical illusion, we have Tiny Island. Or maybe this is the huge island. For some reason, I always consider the Tiny Island to be the island where you're tiny, not the island itself. Whatever, we don't have time to think about that because right off the bat, we have a problem we need to deal with. These giant Goombas. Now, I'm sure you're probably thinking to yourself, oh, more Goomba? That's just more food. But Mario can't actually hurt these Goombas by hitting them. He has to jump on top of them to kill them, something that we cannot do. We're not going to be able to eat them at all. On top of that, the little pool of water we had to cross to get to the pipe earlier is now a massive lake that we can neither jump across nor climb out of. Even Mario can't get across to the island on the other side. However, there's still some good news. With our newfound Short King status, we can now walk through this hole in the wall, allowing us to access a second lake. Now with a giant fish that'll eat us given the opportunity. But if we can avoid it, we can swim across this little sandy hill where we can rest up, as well as this grassy slope. Now for Mario, with a couple of long jumps, he can gain access to a warp pipe and travel to the other version of the island where he's huge. Or maybe become huge himself and come back to the same island. No, the pipes are getting bigger too. These are 2 different islands entirely, aren't they? Doesn't matter. We don't need to think about it because this gap is just a little bit too wide for a normal human to ever be able to traverse. We're stuck here. And with our previous food source cut off, we're going to need to find something else. Now, these Goombas may be too large to beat to death, but there's always the possibility that we could sharpen one of these fence posts to create a spear and kill them that way. But that only gives us food for so long. We need something more sustainable. And oddly enough, that's where an entirely new enemy we haven't had to deal with yet comes into play. This freak in the cloud who won't stop throwing turtles at us. And let me re-emphasize, he won't stop. I don't know where he's getting these things or what the fuck his problem is, but when life gives you spinies, eat them. We're eating the little turtles. Now, there is an obvious issue with this plan in that our entire livelihood depends on the idea that this stupid idiot, A, keeps using turtles as missiles against us in a vain attempt to murder us until the end of time, and B, that he doesn't realize that the best way to kill us is kind of just to fly the fuck away. The moment this Lakitu realizes that our only source of nutrition is him, we are doomed, because no one chucks animals at passerbys with benevolent intent. He wants us dead, and he's not going to keep helping us forever. Now, there is the off chance we could talk him into throwing more turtles at us, if not by befriending him, just kind of by taunting him to keep doing it, make fun of his piss poor aim a bit or something, I don't know. But I feel like this is still just a temporary solution. One day, those turtles will almost certainly stop coming, and the starvation will begin. So I'm gonna have to put this version of the island down as only temporarily survivable. I mean, if you befriend the magic food man who lives in the cloud and end up being able to live forever, that's good for you, but I scream about video games on the internet all day. No one wants to be friends with me, and once I start talking about Goomba calorie counts, I think it's all over for me. He's not sticking around for that. But I'm getting sick and tired of trying to survive in these paintings. How about we mix things up a little bit and just kind of go into this blank wall instead, see if we can give that a spin. Snowman's Land. I think we've already evaluated this situation, haven't we? Obviously, Cool Mountain was only temporarily survivable in the DS version thanks to some fire that never burns out. So the question is, does Snowman's Land have anything extra that'll let us survive for just as long, if not longer? Well, first off, unlike Cool Mountain where we had to melt snow to get water, Snowman's Land has that good, wet, unfrozen raw snow that we can drink directly. And although it's literally freezing cold and will lower our body temperature, it does save at least a few calories that we would otherwise have to waste melting the snow in our mouths. And on top of that, we have some shelter in the form of this igloo that your normal human ass can't reach because you gotta do a triple jump 15 feet in the air to reach it. So, yeah, we're gonna die of exposure here. The DS version doesn't have any extra fire either, so no matter what version of the game you're trapped inside here, we're just going to be freezing to death within a day or so. And even if you could survive the cold somehow, it's not gonna do you much good. There's a good source of penguin at the top of the snowman, and some Goombas in the igloo, but again, gotta do a triple jump to reach either of those. All we have to eat down here is this giant ice ball, not food, these snowmen, which are not food, the spindrifts, which I'm still convinced are mechanical and therefore not food, and of course the coin purse guy, which is full of coins, again not food. There's nothing to eat in this level. From the moment we spawn in, even if you somehow figure out how to survive the cold, we are doomed. And although this frozen hellscape may be impossible to survive in, we're still not done with this room yet, because in the DS version of the game, not only did they add the void, but they also added a whole new level to unlock Wario in as well. The Chief Chili Challenge. Just like Snowman's Land, we have some water and the bitter cold to keep us company until we die. There's no food, and worse, no shelter. We're gonna be freezing to death, and worst of all, have you ever felt a cold blast of wind in the face? It's like getting hit with a bag of nails. And that's because it is literally freezing your skin. We can't even enjoy the updraft that keeps you floating in the air because it would cause us to die even faster thanks to the wind chill effect. Truly one of the worst places to survive in Mario 64. But what about the big silly mountain with the funny little monkeys that keep stealing my goddamn clothes? Release him from this mortal coil, maybe. Starting from spawn, we have this large pool of water here that's constantly being refilled by this waterfall that just shoots out the side of the mountain for no good reason, so water's all taken care of. And in this pool of water, we even have some fish. Now there is one little problem with the mountain. What the fuck was that? Being that in order to get to the bastard, you first need to make these two massive jumps right at the start of the course. Now this is just barely possible with a normal jump, but I am going to concede that these jumps really border on the absolute limit of what a real-life human is capable of achieving. But on the plus side, in exchange for surviving these jumps, we come across a good source of food that we can use while we wait for the fish to multiply. These giant mushrooms. Now, a lot of mushrooms are extraordinarily poisonous, and these mushrooms seem to be based on the famous Amanita muscaria, which will kill you when consumed. But you know what else is based on that same mushroom? The iconic power mushroom, which, rather than killing Mario upon consumption, only serves to make him stronger. So, I have no idea if these will kill you or not. I'm not really sure why I even brought it up. I'm just gonna say that you can eat these mushrooms and live because you can eat this mushroom and live. And I'm just scientific like that. But the question is, the mushrooms, how big are they? Look. Math is boring, and I know you just want answers without explanations, so I'm gonna make this quick. Here's the volume formula for the cap of one of these things. I assume that the mushrooms are supposed to be round instead of a 7-sided polygon like they are in game, because, you know, that's what mushrooms look like in real life. And H is the height of the first cylinder under this sloped bit, which sounds like a weird unit to use until you realize that the very first mushroom you find has a cylinder that is almost exactly Mario's height. So we can just plug Mario in there and find that the mushroom is over 9.5 million cubic centimeters, or 12,226 days worth of calories, assuming that these mushrooms have as many calories per serving as these mushrooms. That's over 33 years worth of food, and there's like 12 of these things here. Now, normally food rotting is a serious issue that would make this all a moot point, but the thing is, the amount of mushroom we would be eating out of this thing every day is such a small percentage of its overall mass. We probably couldn't kill it just by cutting off a day's worth of food. Honestly, if we just rotate which mushroom we're eating off of every day, by the time we come back to the first, it might already be fully healed. And since we have so much food, we could harvest some extra mushroom every day and feed it to these fish in a bid to increase their population. Now, it would probably take a while for there to be enough fish where we could eat a few every day without depleting their population, but it's not like we have much else to do here in this rock in the sky. Maybe ride this slide? I don't know. I don't know, the jump off this cliff with the slide spits you out doesn't seem particularly survivable. Maybe we shouldn't do that. All in all though, Tall Mountain is a pretty easy place to live, and possibly the single most survivable location in Mario 64, since we don't even need to kill anything to get food here. And with that, we have at long last finished our evaluation of every painting inside Mario 64. Now instead, we just have a clock and 3 holes in the floor. Kind of got lazy with the last 3 level entrances, didn't you, Shiggy? But let's ask the question, how long can we survive inside Tick-Tock Clock? Well, everything is made of metal, including the enemies, and the only fluids we're finding here to drink are gear oil. And of course, this level is so goddamn finicky that you'll randomly start teleporting in the air if it's too sunny outside, so yeah, we're probably not surviving too long here, honestly. Dead in 72 hours from dehydration at the latest. But if you're tired of going places with no water, how about we just jump at this hole and try out a place that's literally made from it? Wing Mario over the rainbow. Alright, look, we are in the clouds. There is no food here, and I don't know how we're not just falling out of the sky. But clouds are made of water, so let's figure out how long we can at least hydrate off of these things for. Now, I'm going to be generous with the amount of cloud we have here when estimating, because A, clouds aren't really all that dense, they're mostly, you know, air, that's how they float. So we're gonna need all the clouds we can get, and B, it makes the math easier, and I'm very lazy. Now, I'm going to use our universal unit of measurement here and say that these clouds are roughly 1 greasy Italian-American thick and 9 Marios wide. That would work out to about 2,924.722 cubic meters of cloud here. I mean, it's probably not that precise, but you get it. Now, according to Google, a cumulus cloud has on average 0.5 grams of water per cubic meter, which works out to 0.38 gallons of water. If you manage to suck up this whole cloud, you only get enough water to fill a large Gatorade bottle, and there's a single-digit number of clouds here. We are cooked. You need like 1 gallon of water to survive a day normally, and we get like, what, 2, maybe 3 days of fluids here? We're going to die of dehydration within a week. Also, like, you need to use these cannons to get around. A normal human can't be shot out of a cannon and live, so we'd probably die even sooner in reality, but I really just wanted an excuse to estimate how much water there was in a cloud, so I kind of ignored the rules there for this course. I'm sorry, it's gonna happen again. I ignore the rules when it's more interesting. Walking to the other side of this room though, we have another sky level, Rainbow Ride. I never liked this level as a child. There's just too much standing around and waiting for my taste. But hey, unlike our previous level, we don't have to walk on top of our water supply getting it all dirty. And also unlike our previous level, there is no water supply. I don't even think there's clouds for us to try and drink here. I mean, we got some Lakitus and and the spinies they throw if you're feeling hungry, but I'm not sure it's going to be helping too much when we're going to be dying of dehydration before we even get a chance to start starving. Honestly, there's no water on the top floor of this castle at all, is there? This place is dry as hell, but we still have hope because there's one final level for us to take a look at. Bowser in the Sky, a third sky level in a row. Got real creative here at the end of the game, didn't we, Shiggy? Nah, you know I'm joking. You helped make one of the best games of all time. You can do whatever you want. You want 3 sky levels in a row? You go ahead. You earned it. You earned it. This is the final level of Super Mario 64, where we face Bowser in the sky. Groundbreaking stuff, I know. You know, because there's no grounds. Because we're in the sky. Facing Bowser. I mean, we won't be facing Bowser because he'd kill us no problem. It wouldn't even be close. Like, can you do this? I can't. How heavy is Mario where this is a feasible action? Like, for this to work physically, there needs to be an equal amount of weight on either side of the point they're spinning around on, and that point is Mario's feet. Like, I know Mario's a fucking freak, and not just because he's a fucking New Yorker, but like, is he not a man of flesh and bone? If you got him open, is he just lead? Is Metal Mario just normal Mario taking off his skin suit and revealing his true horrific form as an abominable aberration making its home in the Mushroom Kingdom? And more importantly, how long do you think Mario could survive here? Because there's no water. We're dead in 72 hours. But have you ever seen Mario drink water? Have you ever seen him eat food for that matter? I don't think I ever have. But I do know that I'm happy that this thing's primary interests seem to be go-karting and being friends with everyone, because God only knows what this reality-defying freak is truly capable of. But that's every level in Mario 64 ranked on survivability. Honestly, when I started this, I figured there wouldn't be any survivable levels given how few details they can afford to put into the game given the technical limitations of the Nintendo 64. No moving NPCs, no fruit trees or vendors to take advantage of like in some of the other games, but hey, we made it work where we could. If you think any of these levels are either more or less survivable than what I've listed them as here, let me know in the comments. And if these videos keep doing well, I'll keep making them. So let me know what games you want me to check out next. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe for the algorithm or whatever. YouTube. Alright, bye bye.